Packers got to the playoffs. They saw a lot of great things happen for their team. Josh Jacobs was an amazing pickup for them, great running back. But, you kind of look at the rest of the team, you see a defense that's okay, not great. You see a wide receiver room that sort of feels loaded and barren depending on the week. The pass rush was kind of, there and not there. The secondary seemed to pick up a little bit as they went further along into the year, but still didn't seem like they were ever going to be able to stop anybody, especially when you got to the playoffs. But that's okay. I got all of the answers to solve all of those problems right here, right now. And I'm going to show you how to do it. We're going to start with the secondary. Now, the Packers have never been afraid to draft someone who they thought was a high athletic guy with a lot of raw talent earlier than most people would, which makes it very hard to project who they are going to take in the first round. I think that they're one of the biggest surprises for me just about every year, because you'll look at the needs and be like, oh, the Packers should probably take this here, and they'll go completely the opposite direction. And I think that makes them both interesting and absolutely just infuriating at the same time from a fan perspective. That being said, I do think that I see a guy that helps them in the secondary that they could view sort of in that vein, that I wouldn't be like overly upset if they draft it. I do think it's an earlier draft. Granted, he is climbing up draft boards, but Maxwell Harrison out of Kentucky absolutely dominated the combine, showed elite speed, elite talent, ball tracking capability, hip fluidity, all the things that you want in a top corner. Maxwell Harrison showed that. Now, he's not the biggest guy. He's not, the most physical guy, but I do like what I see in him from a competitor standpoint. He's feisty. He's ferocious. And, he's a little light. He's only 186 pounds, but he's 6'1". He's got some length on him. He's capable of doing some of these really good man coverage things that I think he's going to be able to develop into a really solid corner in the league. And I think that, at 23, he could be an overdraft, but I do like them going to get him. Now, if that is too rich for your blood, the Packers do have a little bit of free agent money they could utilize. They could go out and steal a Byron Murphy from the Vikings, who's a free agent, or Carlton Davis III from the Lions in free agency, give them a little extra money. And I think that, they're probably, if they're looking at a guy like that, they're going to tie most of that free agent money into one premier player and some role guys. So like a Byron Murphy, Carlton Davis, those are the names I'm looking at for the Packers, guys I like for the Packers. And I think that they could be very beneficial for the Packers if they don't want to waste a first-round draft pick on a guy like Maxwell Harrison out of Kentucky, who I do think will be very, very good for them. Now, the wide receiver room, I already addressed it. There's names in that wide receiver room. They've had health concerns, and it seems that sometimes they just don't show up, whether that's Jordan Love or the offensive line is not protecting him enough, he's not accurate with the ball, whatever it may be. There seems to be a problem with consistency from the offensive perspective in the wide receiver room. I think that, you kind of look at the free agent market and, you're not really getting anything different. You're not getting anything, worthwhile to me. I think that Chris Godwin coming off the injury at his age, 29 years old, do you really want to give free agent money to him? Can you even afford a guy like him after you go get some of the corners I mentioned? If you don't take a Maxwell Harrison, where do you spend the money? I think that an aging wide receiver is not worth the money, especially coming off an injury, or you have concerns about, how the longevity, where's their cliff, where are they going to fall off at? I think you address the wide receiver room in the draft. You get reliable guys. Now, I've already said it. There have been known to go grab players earlier than they should. I think like Jack Beck for TCU Horned Frogs, dominant slot guy. What do you do with Jaden Reed at that point? Does he play more outside? Can Jack Beck play outside a little bit? I like Jack Beck. I watch a lot of Jack Beck film. I think he's a dominant guy. He's currently rated as PFF 38. So once again, he's right there with Maxwell Harrison, about 38, 42. Overdraft in the first round, possibly. But if that's the guy you want, you go get him. I like Jack Beck. However, I don't know if he fits that mold, that hyper athlete who you can line, kind of do those things, maybe a little raw, that the Packers seem to gravitate towards in the draft. But I do have another TCU Horned Frog who does fit that mold, and his name is Savion Williams. Savion Williams is 6'5", he's 225. And if you're like, oh, another big-bodied wide receiver, what's he run, like a 4.6? Savion Williams actually ran a 4.4 40-yard dash at the combine. And if you throw on some tape, you see his change of direction is insane. The guy has been touted as the Deebo Samuel of TCU. He threw for a touchdown, he ran for 6 touchdowns, and he caught 6 touchdowns. His route running's a little unrefined, but let's be fair, the Packers have never really had a problem developing wide receivers. I think that Savion Williams could be there for them somewhere around their 87th pick. He's right there, PFF 89 on the big board right now. Very dominant guy, very hyper athletic guy, very fast, physical, big bodied wide receiver. If he gets open space or has a lane, he's a home run hitter, guaranteed. Some questions with his hands. He did have a couple drops in college, but I think that you can clean those up a little bit as he refines his skill set as a wide receiver. Like I said, was a quarterback in high school, so you kind of get some of those heady, smart capabilities, football knowledge, high football IQ kind of guy. I like that in Savion Williams, and I think he is a Packer fit. I do like him as a Packer fit for kind of that sort of, different style of wide receiver than they really have right now, where he's kind of that big-bodied guy. I could see in a weird way where the Packers take both of them because they're both very good at what they do, and they would be an upgrade over some of the other wide receiver options that I think the Packers have. But that wasn't the Packers' biggest issue this year. Wide receivers, they have talent. I like the talent there. Realistically, some of their major issues was the offensive line and specifically the center. I mean, Josh Myers graded out as a 54.2 overall blocking grade for the Green Bay Packers at the center position. He is one of the 4 listed centers in free agency, and none of them are all that great. So this is another position that I think that the Packers have to address in the draft. The only problem is there's not a lot of like dedicated centers in this draft that you're really thinking about taking that highly. Now, there is a guy you could take in the first round if Jack Beck, you don't like that. If Maxwell Harrison, you don't like that. If Gray Zabel's available, he has played all 4 offensive line positions. He is lined up at all 4 of those positions. He has shown he's capable of lining up at all 4 of those positions. He's played every single offensive line position for North Dakota State. And he could be your pick at 23 to kind of be that, hey, wherever we need this guy, we can plug him in and play. He's a big physical guy. A lot of people wonder if his arm length is going to hold him back from playing tackle positions. But even if he's just limited to either guard position or center for you, it's still probably the best pick you're going to get at a guy who can play center. Now, he's only played 14 snaps at center since 2022, predominantly played left tackle in 2024. He split time between left guard and right tackle in 2023. And in 2022, he played every position, at least 10 snaps outside of the right guard position. So he has played all those positions, can do all those things, has been very good at those. I think that he's your pick if you want the safe, sure thing. The Packers have never done the safe, sure thing in the first round, at least not in recent memory that I can remember. But Gray Zabel is that pick for me if you want to get the most dominant player who could plug in at center and be a very, very good pick for you. If that's not what happens, I do see them taking possibly a flyer late on Jack Majors. He's PFF 198 out of Texas right now. He's probably going to that's going to be like a day 3 pick for them. I think that he's a definite target on their big board they're looking at center. Jack Majors, center for Texas, which was probably the best offensive line in college football all year. I mean, you had Kelvin Banks Jr., who's going to go in the first round. I think just about every single senior or draft eligible offensive lineman that declared for the NFL draft is going to be drafted within rounds 1 through 7. They're going to have their entire offensive line that was eligible to be drafted actually drafted in this draft, and that includes Jack Majors, who's probably going to go somewhere in the 6th round. If that doesn't work, I mean, you're looking at undrafteds at that point. You're looking at guys like Gus Hartwig, who is PFF 323 out of Purdue, getting an undrafted rookie free agent, trying to find guys like that. But I think that the safest play is they go get Gray Zabel, and then you take a Savion Williams in around 87 and kind of fill those things out, right? Which gets us to the pass rush, right? We have to find edge help. We have to find these edge rushers that can do there. I don't think they're going to be in the market based on where I think their money's going in the secondary for some of the top tier guys. I think that Malcolm Kuntz, Chase Young, Deo Odeyingbo out of Indiana, those are the guys you're looking at free agency who aren't going to cost as much money that you could possibly plug in. And I still think they're upgrades. They're decent additions to an edge room that really could use a little bit of help. But realistically, the guys I'm looking at are the people that are going to be the edge players that are available at 55 for the Packers. I think Jack Sawyer out of Ohio State and Jared Ivey out of Ole Miss are perfect draft picks for the Green Bay Packers to help solidify the edge position. I feel that they are the best choices you could get. Now, Jack Sawyer obviously was one of the better edge defenders for Ohio State for their NCAA championship team this year. Very, very physical guy, 6'5", 260. Very, very good pass rusher. Lots of sacks, lots of QB hits, lots of QB pressures. Jared Ivey, he's 6'6", 290. He's a guy you can line up inside, outside, has the physicality to play at the edge position, length for days, capable, really, really good edge rusher. Love what I saw from Jared Ivey. I think both of these guys fit very well into a Packers defensive front, and you really couldn't go wrong with either of them. If either of them are available, I feel like at 55, this is a run to the podium, do not walk kind of, put the card in, move on to the next pick kind of thing, because these two guys look, feel, sound, play like Green Bay Packers. And I really believe that with these moves, the Packers can stay in the conversation in the NFC North and possibly put their name as a dark horse in the Super Bowl contender category.
This has been Between the Uprights. Football is life. The rest is just details.